have just been invested in by the Heineken family.
Yes.
It's a 10% stake, I believe. Is that correct?
Completely correct.
There we go. So for those, obviously Double Dutch story is well known. Founded in 2015. They now have an 8% market share in the UK, which I gather, which is congratulations on that. Have just been invested in by the Heineken family, which is the first time the Heineken family have invested in a product such as Double Dutch. They have a presence in 26 countries. I think one of the things we really want to explore this morning with Joyce and Raissa is how they're finding the international marketplace, how they're finding the UK marketplace, and actually how they see the future as well. And particularly with a family like Heineken, obviously people like Heineken behind them, it's obviously going to fast track their success. So they've already been a great success story. I think you've had, if I count this right, about 18 different awards in the last 4 years.
I know how much that says.
So, and actually you're one of the kind of didn't Forbes put you down as one of the up and coming lead female entrepreneurs as well?
Yeah.
So no pressure then on this discussion. So where should we start? Should we start with the Heineken story first?
Yeah.
Because they invested in you in June, early June.
Yeah, so we've been speaking with them since
January,
February, and then they put in
so very bad timing.
Yeah, bad timing, and then they put in the money mid-April, so really mid-Corona crisis, which I think, is amazing from their side.
Yeah, it shows real confidence in you, doesn't it?
Yeah. True.
And the Heineken are going to be sitting on your board as well.
Yeah. So Michelle de Cavallo and Charlene de Cavallo, they are the only heirs of the Heineken, and they also are the biggest shareholders in Heineken. So Michelle de Cavallo, Charlene's husband, is going to be director in our board, and he's also going to be a bit more on the executive side.
A really bit more kind of helping with introductions, especially now with they're mostly helping us, for example, with distributors in the US or with introductions and kind of giving a first kind of introduction to people.
Okay, that's good. So let's go back to the beginning. Founded in 2015. You both got MBAs, and then actually decided corporate life wasn't, didn't you?
Yes, true.
At a very, because I think you worked in a corporate business for less than a year, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah. So we both studied similar finance. So I started working for a private wealth management firm, and Joyce started working for BNP Paribas, so big corporates. But then after 6 months, so not so long, we kind of decided that banking and finance is quite boring. So we decided to move to London. We studied here like a 1-year master, and it was here basically that we wrote our dissertation about the whole gin and tonic hype and the fact that gins were massively booming, but choice of tonic waters was kind of lagging behind. And then when we graduated our university, UCL, they basically gave us a prize for best dissertation and kind of best ID. And they gave us our first investment to start Double Dutch and to kind of start our first production run. And one of the requirements to get the funding from our university was to stay here in the UK. And that's kind of why we started here and also always stayed here.
And you got investment, if I remember, in about the first 3 months, didn't you? You attracted investors very quickly.
When we came here, we kind of quickly realized that you need more than the money that we got from UCL. So we wanted to raise investment, but we didn't really know anybody in London, didn't really work in the industry before, especially not here. So we just started contacting people also on LinkedIn, and then got like our first 5 investors. So we raised initial round with 5 investors, of which 1 took the lead of that investment round. I think in hindsight, I would definitely not do that again. But then, so we raised investment, I think 3 months after we launched or something. And that really helped us to fast track, and then we were able to hire a smaller team and pay ourselves. That also helps.
Always helps a bit, yeah. And then you won the Virgin Food Entrepreneur Award in the first 6 months, didn't you? That's 6 months.
Yes, I think Richard Branson, he kind of gives this award of best food and beverage products every year. And we won it in 2015, which I think definitely helped us a lot. I think it gave us mostly kind of on the credibility side, because I think people thought that we were probably bigger than we were. We got lots of pictures with Richard Branson and everyone thinks like, wow, but in essence, it's just a picture. And I think that really kind of helped us with getting our first customers on board and getting kind of good national press, and kind of gave us better credibility than we probably would have in quite a short time. Yeah.
Well, now you're in 26 countries. Do you want to give a quick overview on which countries you're in, particularly?
Yeah, so most of our countries so the UK is definitely our home market. Then we export to most countries in Europe, and then South Africa is a growing market for us. Singapore is a really good market for us, and then Canada. We're just launching in the US. We launched about 2-3 months ago, just before COVID. There has been a bit on delay, but now that markets are opening up again, that's becoming a bigger focus. But it's mainly Europe at the moment, and US is like our really next step. We're trying to take it a bit more focused in the US, so we're not launching in all states together. We're focusing on 4 or 5 states, so Florida, New York, California, Texas, and Chicago, and then seeing how it works there, and then hopefully grow from those states to the next 5 states.
Well, congratulations on that. So 5 years in, what's been the hardest piece?
So many things. That was the hardest piece.
I think finding good team members has definitely always been a struggle for us. I think also because we, apart from the 6 months in finance, which was very short, I think we never really experienced a corporate life, and we started straight out of university. So I think we definitely struggled from the start with team management, but also hiring the right people. And
I think it's just getting, like, our competitors are so much bigger than us, so it's very often like try to find a balance where with customers and new pitches, on the one hand side, they love like a unique story, and like more smaller businesses that started from scratch, and they like the actual story behind it, that it's not made up. But then on the other hand, you need to try and match, or they expect you to match commercial support from the same as like Swaps or Fever-Tree. I think that's always the hardest. There's like a chicken and the egg.
We talked about that, didn't we? Because we talked about this. Yeah. Sometimes talking to purchasing departments has been particularly difficult, hasn't it? Because their expectation of what you can pay to be listed has been quite high.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which has made it quite a hard journey at times. Is that fair?
For sure. I think you need to get so many no's before you get your first yes. Yeah.
Okay. And actually, internationally, how do you see expansion long term? Obviously, the US is going to be your biggest market. Then where else do you? South Africa's been one of your bigger markets as well, hasn't it?
Sorry?
South Africa has been one of your biggest growth markets as well, hasn't it?
I think US definitely is going to be our second biggest market. But then we do see really good growth. Like, for example, Italy is doing really well. Scandinavia has great opportunities. We're seeing lots, especially during COVID crisis, which was interesting, lots of interest from like Eastern Europe and like Russia, Poland, Romania. We got lots of new retailing listings there during the COVID crisis.
I think for us, while we were super on-trade focused, and about 80% of all our revenues before COVID came from restaurants, bars, hotels, I think the on-trade is still where we want to grow double this, but I think we've just realized that we can't, that whilst retail and online, literally, I think I never gave it any focus or any time. I think we do need to start investing more in getting retail listings and getting a presence for consumers as well.
And I also think that's probably gonna help the brand in the on-trade as well, because on the other side, like lots of, if we, for example, lose tenders against another brand, then often the reason is like, our people don't know, your brand awareness isn't big enough. It's going to cost us more to showcase Double Dutch and to create interest than just going with the high street brand. And I think we always were very skeptical going into retail because we thought it's going to hurt or on-trade, and it's going to damage the brand a little bit, and it's better to be niche focused in the on-trade. But I think in hindsight, it's actually going to be really important for both for the on-trade and our retail sales to focus more on grocery and retailers and off-trade.
Yeah, it's natural. And I assume COVID has obviously prompted all this as well. The COVID crisis must have obviously had a dramatic effect on the business.
Yeah,
massively.
Well, we were normally 80% on-trade, 20% off-trade. So we just thought, oh my God, with lockdown, this is going to be a nightmare. But it has definitely been much better than we expected because of online and because of retail. And that massively, we were like 1,500% up with Amazon in the past couple of months. And those really have been life-changing. And then a couple of new other retailers in like Switzerland and other markets that really, we are now at the same level as where we were before COVID. So while obviously
already at the same level now.
Yeah, we are. But on the other hand, if COVID didn't happen, we expected to double. So it's much better than we expected. But yeah, it's also not ideal where we should be. We just lost a year of extra growth.
No, I understand that. And actually, you started the COVID thing with COVID yourselves. You actually went through the COVID thing yourself, didn't you?
We did. We were like one of those people that still went on ski holiday before lockdown. And then our whole group got it. But
it was quite fine.
We weren't really that sick or anything. So we were quite lucky.
No, that's always good as well. So what, as we come out of this, obviously once was lovely, you've obviously taken on one of the hardest markets, because I think anyone would say Fever-Tree were dominating when you first joined. What gave you the belief to actually be able to go and compete against such a large players and such a difficult market to break into?
It's difficult. I think we just started Double Dutch because we really loved what we love gin, we love drinking. We really thought that Double Dutch was a better product. And
then really never thought about giving up. I don't know.
Yeah. And I do really think, obviously Fever-Tree is huge, but if you look at the whole gin market and the whole spirits market, there's so many players in that field, and we compete to 2 other brands. So it's quite, our competitors are much bigger, and that makes it harder. But on the other hand, our tenders are always against 3 other brands. It's not like gin brands that need to compete against 100 other craft gins. And I think the other positive about a product like Double Dutch is that we always go for exclusivity contracts. So while we might lose more contracts than a gin brand, or like, but we still, if we get a contract, it's much bigger in terms of volumes because we never sit next to other competitors. It's always either Double Dutch or Fever-Tree.
So there's one question here. How do you see your USP? What is your USP against Fever-Tree?
So I think for us, we definitely focus on our flavors like cucumber, watermelon, pomegranate, and basil, cranberry, and ginger, and about the versatility of those products. We're not just, so on the one hand side, we focus on, we are specifically developed to drink with spirits, but you can also use us as a healthy adult soft drink because our flavors don't have any quinine. So about 40% of use is without alcohol and about 60% of use is with alcohol. And bars tend to stock us because that saves them fridge space, so you don't need to stock a soft drinks range and a mixed range. You can have, by stocking, for example, 5 or 6 Double Dutch SKUs, you can make your whole gin and tonic menu, you can have a soft drinks menu, and the versatility of use within the spirits category. So we do lots of spritzer pairings, but also rum, tequila, vodka, mezcal, and we try to kind of involve the whole back bar for bars.
So if you're giving advice to others, because I know there's 1 or 2 other entrepreneurs sitting on this call now listening to you, what would be your advice to them?
I think the advantage of being like a small business is that people forgive you about mistakes. And I think lots of starting businesses want to have their products perfectly to the millimeter, and they want to have everything perfect. But I think it's important that you launch a product and get feedback from your customers and then be open to iterate your products. I think for us, we launched with like labels that we knew were really not nice. We changed it with feedback from our customers, which is much better, because then at least you know that you're making a product that our customers want rather than what we would have thought we would think is perfect. And I think also with new flavors, we always launch with a small batch, and then we get feedback from the on-trade, and then we iterate on our recipe slightly, like make it a bit less sweet, more sweet, to change the flavor combinations a little bit. And I think that really helps. I think there's no point in waiting 18 months with launching your new products just because you think it's not perfect yet. I think people really forgive you if it's not perfect if you're a smaller business. And I think you need to take advantage from that.
So don't worry about not being perfect, just get on with it, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly. And man management's been your biggest challenge, has it?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And how about the competing? Because one of the problems about doing the product you're doing is you've constantly got to market yourselves, haven't you? And you've very much marketed around the two of you. You are such a great story that everyone does warm to you. But in that, cost of marketing is always going up, isn't it? So that must be a challenge for you as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a challenge as well, kind of how much, or for us at least, how much we bring kind of the founder story forward and how much we need to focus on other things and product and USP and stuff. So I think that's definitely finding the right balance. I think marketing expenses, we kind of always kind of budgeted on a percentage of turnover. And for us, most of our marketing expenses actually go to rebates and listing fees and stuff, because that's just what everyone expects. So there's not so much left for proper actual marketing. But I think with that, it's important we raised quite a lot of investment rounds, because I think it's important to keep investing. And if you want to accelerate your growth, you can't just wait, or we couldn't on just our organic growth. So I think we kind of always had a thought that I'd rather have a smaller percentage of a bigger successful company than 100% of a tiny company. So I think it's just about finding the right investors and
that's a tough journey in itself, is managing investors, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think it becomes easier with every year. Like our first investment round was a bit of a nightmare, and then our second investment round was easier, and then the third round was much easier because you build up a network and you already know who you would really want to have as your potential new investors if you even haven't started with the investment round yet. While in the first round you just take everybody who wants to invest, which probably also isn't the right way forward. I definitely think, as a tip, in the first investment rounds, it's also quite important to do the due diligence on investors. I think with startups, they expect that the investors only do due diligence on the businesses and the founders, but I think you should do it other way around as well. You need to know who you're gonna get investment from, because it's such an important part, and if you're not on the same page, long term or short term, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly hard skill to learn, actually, as you go through that. Ramesh has got an interesting question to ask. Post Brexit, will you be looking to relocate the business?
No, we wouldn't. We love London, but I think we do. We are going to split our production and our warehousing much more. So at the moment, we have our warehousing in the UK and in Belgium. So Belgium is for.
That's also since Brexit.
That's also since Brexit. So and at the moment, our cans are being produced already in Europe and in the UK. And we're bringing our bottle production, also splitting that to the UK and Europe, so that the UK is really separate from our Europe and export side of the business. Because we definitely do see lots of export markets that don't want to deal with UK locations anymore, that don't want to deal with UK manufacturers anymore. So it does help, but we would just stay here and just have to, just separate our filling and our production.
And Heineken's view of your growth, where do they see your growth? Because for them to step in and support you is a big step for them as well as you.
Yeah, Well, I think the amazing thing about their investment is that it's the opposite of, for example, going with a VC firm. They are very much on a long-term plan. They are quite not against, but they really don't find an exit, for example, necessary. So they are very much working with us to focus on a 5-year long-term growth plan. How are we really going to first tackle the US? How are we going to make sure that, for example, the Netherlands, that actually should be our second home market, how are we really going to tackle the Netherlands? And really identifying different key markets on where we should be where our strongest position or distribution should be. So we're identifying that at the moment. They are very much, in terms of marketing, for example, they're very much like liquor on lips, and no point in working with influencers or working with like new type of marketing efforts. They're very in belief of doing sampling campaigns, and that's where the marketing efforts should go into. So I think that's quite interesting. And then they are very, and then on-trade distribution, because they own so many of the on-trade accounts as well, they're helping us, or like they're introducing us to their pubs, bringing that into their accounts, into their distribution network. So it's definitely very much focused on certain markets. And then if there's, for example, if we would say, oh, Hong Kong is really we really want to be for some reason in Hong Kong, then they would help us get us into there. And I think the great thing is they have their network is so big. And on the one hand side, if we can go into the Heineken distribution network in a country, that's great. But in other countries, for example, France, it isn't really the right partner for Double Dutch. So then they would just introduce us with their competitors, which they're still friendly with. They have such a big network. So I think it's great that it's the family of Heineken behind it, not just the Heineken business itself. So I think that really helps.
No, I understand that. Ramesh, does that answer your question for you?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Ramesh.
Yep. Chris, yes, it does answer my question. I mean, I've been following the story since the first time I met the girls at the Hoxton Hotel, when Lu Li used to be involved in this process, a young Chinese lady who's also done wonders. I think it's a great story. And we were in the New Forest last year, and we ordered a gin and tonic, and the mixer that came out was Double Dutch. And we asked them whether they stocked a smaller company called Fever Tree, and they said, no, we don't like it at all. So, I did sort of jump on the bandwagon and say, look, I was a friend of the family, and so they gave me another gin and tonic. So,
Nice.
So, Lauren, can I bring you in at this point? I think you've got a question for the ladies.
No, it's actually from Alan. I was forwarding it on, but he raised an interesting point, saying, if you girls could choose one market in mainland Europe that you would have launched in after the UK, which one would it have been and why?
Belgium, was this?
Not Belgium.
I think I still, even knowing Brexit, would still have chosen the UK. I think there is just, compared to Europe, so much more startup support here from the government, but also kind of as a culture, everyone's kind of helping each other. I feel that the kind of slightly more experienced generation really wants to help younger people. And I think in Europe, that really doesn't exist so much. There's not really kind of a helping culture, which I think is big, but also from the government, like EIS and SEIS and all those governmental schemes, like for example, the Britain is Great schemes, and where they help you with export and everything, that just doesn't exist to my knowledge anywhere in Europe. If it still has to be Europe, then I would probably choose Amsterdam.
Yeah, I think because Amsterdam is probably the closest to having different cultures, bigger city, quite open for innovation. But the Dutch, they're quite tight on their money, so premiumization isn't great there. So I still think London would be the best city even after Brexit. I think there is so much, and there's also still so much wealth here, and I think opportunities are just much bigger here.
Is that what attracted you to the UK in the first place?
Yeah, I think what attracted us to the UK and London is that it was just like so like there's so many different types of people, so many different cultures that live here, so many different types of, I mean, you have all type of restaurants here. You have super premium, lots of luxury hotels, lots of super premium restaurants, but you also have amazing casual dining groups. You have amazing independent smaller cocktail bars. Like that kind of hospitality offering, I wouldn't know any city in the world that has, or in Europe especially, that has so many different types of offerings. I think that's really great about it.
I think the biggest hospitality group in Belgium has 12 sites.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you a bit, because I think actually the answer to that question you just done actually explains a bit about you, because you are quite fearless, aren't you? You both do have this kind of very positive outlook of just going for it. Because everyone talks about how people today have a great fear of failing. It just never seems to occur to you both.
Maybe no, it doesn't really. No, yeah, I don't know. I think I really think
it helps with being with the two of us as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's still, even so, to come and do what you've done had a certain confidence in the first place, didn't it?
Yeah, but also just, I think we just really love Double Dutch, and Double Dutch was our baby. And it's not that we really ever thought like, oh, what about if we fail, or you just you just go from day to day and you try to get to the next success. I think it's so, you're just like, it's like your whole life. So we never really talked or have had any conversation about, oh, shall we stop? It's just, you either have a shitty day or you have a good day, but next day is going to be probably better if it was a bad day today.
I know your father's had a lot of influence in your life as well. How does he feel about you now, with your success now?
Our dad? He loves it. I mean, they obviously are super supportive. And they also have been super supportive in helping with like problems, for example, that we had with shareholders and those kind of things. So they've been really, really good. Yeah, I think they really help. They help us if we have like problems, and then we call them up, and they know quite a lot, but they don't know a lot about our industry. But I think it's great to have like support from family. That's really, it's super important. Yeah.
Understandably so. But you are becoming role models of successful other entrepreneurs. You're still in your 20s, aren't you?
29. 1 year to go.
Well, then it's all over.
It's gone.
But it's getting rarer to see young people break through. What do you think we need to do to encourage young people to take more risks? Because we do need, particularly as we rebuild the economy, we need young people to be out there, don't we? Particularly in having that kind of hope and optimism that you've obviously had.
Yeah.
I think definitely like all the government support that was there, that they're now talking, for example, about that entrepreneurs relief and stuff, that they are looking at canceling that. I think that's just not going to help anyone. I think the whole government stuff really did give us support in the beginning, with the thought of it's going to be easier to raise investments. It's going to be easier to find exporters. It's going to be easier to, I don't know, just like stupid things like that whole government support for startups. They even help you with finding a lawyer or an insurance broker or whatever. Like those kind of starting things definitely helped us. And I think companies like EPU helped us so much in the beginning with all the networking and stuff. And I think that's massively important, that the whole networking events are going and will still be happening. And I think with the whole event sector going down, it would be a massive shame if those things don't happen anymore, because I think a Zoom call is still different than just face-to-face.
Yeah, I think it's really initiatives from other businesses that are helping young entrepreneurs. Exactly the same as, as you really helped us at the start. We met so many people via your events and your introductions, and I think that's the way forward. I think really people buy from people, they don't buy.
But I think that, again, I always remember that time we went to the Henley Festival, and actually that didn't daunt you at all. going
I
to
was
meet.
an hour too late.
Yeah, I remember that. But beyond that, but the point was you're never daunted by actually going and actually mixing with industry leaders. There's that confidence piece that actually makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I do think it's important that there's so many initiatives done. And I also, for example, like on the whole female entrepreneurship side, there is so much, people are really trying to improve the whole situation, whether it's for young entrepreneurs or for female entrepreneurs. But then on the other hand, it's also their responsibility to actually take the whole advantage from it. There's no point and go to these events. And we also always thought it was awkward at the beginning, but then, yeah, get over it. If you really want to meet new people, if you really want to get to the next step, then there's worse things, even if it's awkward, worse things to go for dinner and go to Henley Festival with like people that you don't know, right? I mean, there are definitely worse things. And I really think if you don't really want to do those kind of things, then probably you're not one. Then I think hospitality definitely isn't the right sector for you. But then I also think you might not be the right person to grow the business. Then maybe if you're the founder, you need to find a CEO or something that is much more open and to really build that network. Because which is fine as well. But I think if you're young, you're by definition don't know as many people, by definition don't have the experience that senior people have. So yeah, I think that is a bit the chicken and egg. I think there is quite enough support for young entrepreneurs. I just don't think that everybody's taking as much of the advantage from it than they could.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. It's getting people to embrace, engage, isn't it? Actually.
Yeah.
Alex, can I bring you in? You've got a question for the ladies in terms of branding.
Yes. Hi, girls. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I think that's the quote, the quote of the month, actually, so far. There are worse things than going to Henley Festival. Yes, there are, especially at times like this.
In fairness, just quickly on that one, in fairness, poor old Joyce was, 3 months into the business? And she had to sit on a table with about 10 kind of leading industry leaders. It's quite daunting.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. No, it's great, though. It's lovely to hear that. Now, I was just going to ask you about, obviously your sisters, your twins. Do you have your own respective strengths, or do you work on all aspects of the business and growing it together?
I think in general, our strengths and kind of weaknesses are pretty similar, but from the start, when we started Double Dutch, we just very much separated everything we did. So I do everything with sales and marketing, which Joyce doesn't really get involved in. And Joyce does everything with finance and operations and exports, which I don't really get involved in. So it is very much separated, but we do like the same things and we do hate to do the same things. So that's not always very handy.
Yeah, it's about, I guess, sort of identifying what you like doing and what you're best at, and allowing the other one to get on with it. I was also going to ask you about the travel factor. Obviously, you're growing in different markets around the world. Travel market has let's say, collapsed for now. How's that going to hinder you? Have you now got to change your strategy because you're going to have to now remotely find people in those sectors and in those countries in order to be able to grow them, or are you going to ride it out and then get back to your traveling when you can?
Yeah, I think we will ride it out and go back to traveling. But I also think on the one hand side, it's interesting. We have been able to get meetings over Zoom with owners of distributors in other countries that we probably wouldn't really have gotten if it wasn't in the situation. Yeah, because on the one hand side, really meeting somebody and saying like, oh, I'm happy to fly to Barcelona to meet you. It's putting quite a big pressure on the person that you're meeting there. Even if we are happy to take an EasyJet flight for £50, they still think like, wow, you're really coming from the UK to Spain for only meeting me. So I think it's quite hard in that sense to get meetings, that kind of meetings. And I think before COVID, nobody ever even thought about, let's do this over Zoom. That just wasn't an option.
At least not so often, like have 5 Zoom calls a day.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I think now over COVID, so many people have been more open to just have a quick Zoom call and have an introductory meeting. So I think that is quite interesting. I think it might have been that now the world has come together a little bit more and they're more open. Yeah, in a sense, I think people now don't find it, I think they find it more normal, but also not, I think it was a bit rude before to just ask, okay, we'll just do a Zoom or Skype, as in I couldn't really care less. Now it's just, let's just do a 20 minutes introductory meeting. If it really makes sense, then let's meet each other in 2 weeks or 2 months time when you can fly here. And I think that opened up, we have had more meetings for exports because of that. So I think that's helped in a sense. And I think moving forward, people are going to be more efficient with Zoom. I think we wouldn't travel that much anymore that often. We would more start with Zoom meetings, and then if it's really worth it, then we'd fly there and have a second meeting. Yeah,
it's interesting time, isn't it? How it's been a tutorial in how to use Zoom effectively. None of us, as you said before all this happened, none of us would have necessarily used it as a default introduction mechanism.
Yeah.
And yet now it's a great way of getting to know people. And at least when you see them eventually, you've already met them, you've broken the ice, you've actually had a chance to get to know them a little bit. And then if you need to follow that up with a meeting, you can do so.
Javier, shall we bring you in at this point? I think you've got a point to make about young people.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, well, it was just a comment, as Raissa and Joyce were saying. A lot of efforts are being done by governments all over Europe and in the United States to bring these young entrepreneurs into the market and to help us do things. So I just wanted to add how this, as in my case, can also be done by companies. I think young people, as myself, we have almost, as I was saying, limitless flexibility. We have the passion to travel, the passion to move, the passion to go from one place to another. Now is more meetings or more Zoom meetings. But I think this is also something companies should try to embrace and try to, you probably can have more senior managers, more senior people running the company, but definitely you can take advantage, or to put it that way, and on the young people and try to, it's what I'm doing in the UK actually. I just went to a bigger 300 people company and told them, hey, why don't you open in the UK? I can do that for you. And that's why I'm here. So, and that's not easy to find in companies. Going to a big company and telling them, hey, I think you should do this because I'm could probably help you. I don't have the experience as a 40 or 50-year-old guy who has been doing what I'm doing now for 20 or 30 years, but I definitely have the passion to do it. And if it's a market you don't know, if it's a market or a place you don't know, probably having someone that's young, someone you can rely on to move, and we will fail many times, we will fall. And I think the thing, probably what Raissa and Joyce were talking about at the beginning, is that we just don't give up. We don't surrender. I mean, we go for it, and we will keep going for it as many times as needed.
I mean, it is one of the big debates, isn't it? This one, Jodie and Raissa and Joyce, because the view is younger people don't take that risk in the same way. And actually, we just need to somehow encourage them to take risk. And the view is because actually they're carrying more debt, and actually companies are being stricter, so they're making it harder. But actually, the reality is, particularly now, we need to encourage young people to take those kind of jumps at this point in time. Matthew, shall I bring you to this point? Because obviously you've done a lot of work with young people in Europe. Mr. Miosh? Yes, you. Yep. You're on mute still at the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can, because you've been working with a lot of young people all across Europe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there is ambitious, young people, everywhere. It's not that question. The question is after, no matter what you go through for building a startup or building something that is new into the market, I think it's important that whatever you build, obviously, that thing you build, makes sense. A thing that is meaningful. I mean, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of passionate young graduates going through some great, obviously experience by building, their startup, and so on. But you see that the idea at the end of the day is as ephemeral, as a butterfly, unfortunately, So sometimes, it's good, to make sure that no matter what, you put in place, and that big word of sustainability, I'm going to use it because it's really, really important. I mean, I think we see too much businesses, unfortunately, around, popping out, everywhere, startups or not, I don't like that word, just new businesses and so on, but having ideas, that are really sustainable, not towards only nature, and so on, but towards, obviously, humanity, people, and so on. So food and drink, that you can go forward, always, this is the most sustainable thing, hopefully, and so on. But anyway, back to your question, working with young people. Yes, I'm fascinated by young people. I still believe myself young, and I think a lot of people here, I mean, like, I don't think, even past, 60 that you are old, it just depends,
I hope you're not talking about to me though, Matthew.
No, absolutely not. You see, we're still in contact, you see.
Funny. Alan, can I bring you in here? Because obviously you've just set up your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, sorry, going back to video now there as well. Yeah.
You've just obviously launching your own product onto the marketplace.
Yes.
How are you finding that? How are you finding that experience? Is there anything you'd like to ask the ladies?
Well, yeah, I mean, thanks very much. Dan is also on the line as well, who's one of the co-founders of the business. So we just launched in February a CBD infused lemonade in the Irish market called Parachute. And for the first couple of weeks, it went very well. We were getting good listings, and then obviously COVID happened and pretty much everything stopped. But we are just seeing things start to tick back up again now, and we're starting to get a couple of, again, very strong listings in supermarkets and so on across Ireland. But I guess just a question I would have to the guys from Double Dutch is, one thing we're trying to do now is make the jump over from the Irish market into the UK market. And we're finding it very difficult to, without sort of the relevant network base, I suppose you could call it, to get distributors or wholesalers to kind of take that time to even give us the 20-minute Zoom call or whatever it is. I mean, do you have any advice, or even if it's just little tips on how we can take it to the next level, just to try and get these meetings or discussions going?
I think for distributors, they wanna see like success somewhere else. So whether it is awards that you can talk about, or about like success showcase stories that you can talk about from Ireland, where I don't know if you're in one of the retailers, for example, that is in Ireland already, that's also here in the UK, for example, Tesco, or I don't know, somewhere that you can already showcase some kind of success, or like maybe even growth rates. Or I think we're starting businesses, it's all about credibility, and I think that's the big issue to overcome, is that people think that you're like that's a business worth taking the risk in. If they think that there's no longevity, or that the business isn't really established yet, then the risk for them to take stock and then maybe it's not working is probably, in my eyes, I think, no? I think it's the biggest issue. So yeah, for like, in terms of like awards, yes.
So I think sending samples to the right buyers with kind of a one-pager and like the 5, for example, success stories you've had so far. Sending bespoke boxes, people kind of feel obligated to send a thank you back, I think. If you make, for example, a box and engrave the buyer's name or whatever, then usually they do need to send something. Thank you. So
It's interesting because we have done that, and we've had distributors and wholesalers come back to us, but the problem that they're saying is that a lot of them are like, oh well, we're still all working from home, so it's in the office with my name on it, but I haven't been back. I mean, listen, this is just an extraordinary time, so I can't expect things to operate normally. But no, thank you very much. That's much appreciated.
I would definitely also speak with DIT, because their relationship, Ireland, the UK, is the best of everything, and they can really help you making direct introductions and telling the distributors you need to have a meeting with them.
Who did you say that was?
Department of International Trade.
Department of International Trade.
They have like business advisors per sector. I can give you my contact there, and then if she's not the right person, she will put you in touch with the right one.
But in
Yeah,
fairness,
that'd be brilliant.
In fairness, in those early days, you did literally go from bar to bar, door to door, didn't you? The very old-fashioned way.
Definitely, definitely. I think for us, we also didn't focus on export after about a bit less than a year. And we got all our first customers just like bar to bar, restaurant to restaurant.
So we got our first distributors from going bar to bar, and then the bars told their distributors,
you need to study double Dutch.
And that's what we've done. That's what we've done in Ireland. So we've got distribution nationwide in Ireland now. It's just making the jump. But I don't think we're too far away from doing it. But for example, a contact in the DIT would be really helpful. Dan, do you have any other questions?
Guys, we really appreciate that feedback. You mentioned awards there. Like, how do you go about putting yourself forward for awards, or can you run me through that process?
Literally entering every single awards that's important and not important. I think people like the award, like the bit award winning. I think we've got some good awards, but we also have awards that maybe 2 companies entered and we won out of 2 companies, and people are still like, wow, you're award winning. So I think you just need to literally enter. I think most of the awards things are now just online entering. And most of them are free.
Yeah.
Because the Virgin one definitely was a real game changer for you.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
That was quite a long process. So we apply online, and then there were 2 stages of interviews with people you needed to meet in London, and then there was this award stage. But I agree. Yeah, I think the Virgin thing definitely has really helped.
And just to jump in there again, in terms of getting into those key stores within the distribution network, what have you guys found to be the most successful or most important things within the store? Like, is it product placement around the sort of eye level, good merchandising, good relationships with the manager, or what would you see as the most important things about getting that good display space within those key stores?
I think for us, we always used to be very on-trade focused. So I don't know how much insight we have in retail, to be honest. Because most of our investments and everything has been
in bars,
in bars and restaurants. And the most important there is being on a menu, not under the mixer, or for us, not just under soft drinks or under mixers, but also in the pairing. So, for example, Hendrick's with the cucumber watermelon. I think that definitely drives sale because people want to have a ready-to-order drink. And just being on a list doesn't really help for us.
That's brilliant, guys. That's really helpful. Thanks so much.
And going back to the Virgin one, because of course the Virgin one, when you won it in 6 months, you was taken out to the US, weren't you?
Yeah.
This is quite a daunting experience.
Yeah, so they flew us over to the US to pitch for Target, like the supermarket chain. And then they helped us like mentoring how to pitch, those kind of things that helped a lot. Then we had to pitch, and then we got that deal with Target, but then we put it on hold from our sides because, and I think in hindsight, that was a really good decision because it used to, I mean, it would have been like game-changing first order volumes, and it would have really completely probably tripled our first year revenues. But we back then thought like, okay, we're not really ready for it. We're only 6 months in the business. We can't really logistically, we don't even know, we didn't really have anything in the UK yet, let alone launch in the US in 300 supermarkets in 42 states. So then we said to the buyer, like, thank you for the listing, but we're not accepting it. Yeah. And I think that is a good thing because also it wasn't really our target audience. Target is quite low in the premium sides. And you only get one chance in the US, and would we have taken it? I think 99% sure that we either wouldn't be able to supply, and on the other hand, probably also kind of blown up some bridges in terms of the brand positioning of the market. So I think it's also important to just say no to opportunities sometimes and stay focused on what your goal is and who your key target market is. So I think for if your market is on trade and you want to build there, then focus on there and don't get like side opportunities. Maybe.
Yeah. No, it was a brave thing to do. Bridget, can I bring you in here? Because actually, I think you've got a very relevant question to this piece.
Yes, you said at the very beginning at one point that it's very important to have the story ready or to have the right story, something like that. And my question would be, like you said, with the other parts of your product, you basically went a lot with the customer feedback and to improve it, basically. How was it with the story? Was this ready from the beginning, or you also amended it along the way?
No, I think, I don't know, sorry, that's probably the accent, but I think the story can't be ready or not ready. I think the story is there. And I think the nice thing about smaller businesses and starting businesses is that hopefully your story is genuine and real. And
so
that is a
you can tweak your story definitely after launching, but I think the essence and the base probably should stay the same because it should be a true story. And if you are going to change your story, then it's probably more marketing, made up PR.
Yeah, and then if they know that you changed it, then I think why would they then go with a smaller business? Why would customers go with a smaller businesses? If I think that's the advantage that we all have, that there's like genuine, passionate stories behind products of starting businesses, and there's a difference.
Sorry, the other thing is you've made the brand. You built a brand story around yourselves. You made it very personal, haven't you?
Yeah.
And that's how you've done the genuine, because it's very hard to build a brand story which is genuine and authentic for a large scale volume product, but also make it that personal connection, which is what you've done successfully.
True.
Chris, I'm just reflecting on that. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it just screams at you out of the screen, doesn't it? How important the two people are. You're both incredibly impressive, and young, old, male, female, it really makes no difference. It's your energy, professionalism, enthusiasm, and drive, and I couldn't be more impressed with the business that you built. But personal brand, regardless of the product or the industry, is so important, and you've curated yours really well, obviously, and it reflects in the success you've had. Well done.
Can I ask a question, ladies? Is that also maybe a double-edged sword? By building the brand so personally around you, you might want to buy a Greek island one day and sail off. Does that mean that there's a slight handicap to building it so personally?
Yeah, I think there's definitely. I mean, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think we chose for this route and you can't really get back from it. So on the one hand side, we made ourselves irreplaceable, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing. And in the long term, it's going to be more difficult to separate the brand from the two of us, which that it will eventually, you will need to do that. So we have so many conversations and like brainstorm sessions about how to find like a good balance. Also, like, for example, on social media, and how do you really present like the story behind it, but on the other hand, don't really make the whole product and business depending on the story of us too. It's super difficult. I don't think we have an answer, but I definitely think there's benefits and disadvantages to it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it places a lot of pressure on you, doesn't it? Because you are the story.
I think that's fine. I think it's more kind of, if we're ever going towards an exit, then I think it's going to be probably more difficult for companies like ours.
Just have a longer earnout.
It's 20 years out. 20 years out. Well, look, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today, everyone. Thank you, ladies. As always, it's been a pleasure to see you. And for joining us. We wish you every continued success as always. So I look forward to seeing you soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your time. Have a good day.